Thank you. And now I'm pleased to introduce the next speaker, Natalia Shushlebina, landscape designer, winner of the 9th Russian National Award on Landscape Architecture, the Best Implemented Garden 2018, an architect with many other credentials. And what we'd like to highlight is that she was the winner of the Grand Prix in the nomination as Small Temporary Garden of the Flower Jam in 2019. Natalia, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. A few words about the Neglinka garden, the temporary garden we built last year. Before I talk about it, I believe you'd like to know some background. And the background came from the picture by Van Gogh, The Road with Cypress and Star. And this was our exercise in the Marhi High Landscape Training Program. So this is color science. We split it by colors, and here we made this model, and the lighter colors are on the top and the darker ones are at the bottom. And with this model I saw that this is a city with a river. And last year, when time came to prepare for the contest, I thought about using this model for a temporary garden. I went through a long journey of looking for a composition. Here you can see the volumes I considered and the results I projected. And finally, this is the project I filed to the contest. The topic was the river, and the image was built piece by piece. I wanted to have the high and the low bank. You know that all the rivers in the North Pole have the right bank which is high and the left bank which is low. And this is caused by the moon. So the high bank has the anthe and a hole, and the low bank, you know, it was like a moor. The initial idea was to build an island here. So the initial nomination was the mid-size temporary garden. So here you can see the moor, here you can see the path we retained, and there was a small pathway through the cereals. We had the hope that the cereals would grow, and when you walk through this, you get into a completely different environment. There we also had a shelter for a boat, and the boat was later rebuilt. And when the jury discussed it, I believe that this garden was further moved to the small garden nomination. So this is the layout, and this transfer made me reshuffle it. Initially, the area was 120 meters, and here is the final layout. I'd like to say that you know, we often face barriers and limitations, and as a matter of fact, they make us even better. And I believe that this made this more interesting. You have the high and low banks here, the path and the bridge. The boat remained, but no one identified it. And I know one because it was half of it, and now it's a quarter of it. Well, to recognize a quarter of a boat would be an uphill job. And here you can see the river. I wanted to show the depth of this river, just like you can see in the maps. And these networks are for lights. So I wanted it to be not, you know, very direct, like the boat and the nets. I wanted it to be just hints you want to consider and to ponder over. Here you can see the location. I'm really pleased to say that the site was the Sukharev Square, because this is a really good location for this. The garden was ever-changing. Well, I cannot just design it and have it. This is a continuous process for me. So here I visualize it, and I understand that the brown color is not a good match here. And then I decided to change the color scheme. So here you can see the garden in June. Here you can see the small trees and bushes. Maybe some of you will recognize yourselves. So we had different plants, including iris. And so here you can see this in July. And one more element I want to talk about. The mirror walls. I really like it. It reflects everything, and it enlarges the space and makes it more exciting. So, Neglinka garden at night, and this is in August, close to September, so you can see it's a jungle, a lot of greenery. Well, I really liked it. And now, a few words about lieu de mémoire, or the site of memory. Why is it important to consider when we build our gardens? This was first introduced by Pierre Nora early in the 1980s. So this is a unity of the spiritual material, which with time, with the human will, becomes an element of legacy. This is quite important, and I'll refer to this later. So here you can see Neglinka before it was channeled into a pipe. It was mentioned in 1401 as Neglimna. Then the name of the river changed into Neglina, Neglinaya, and then Neglinka. And this is called this way due to the moor, because Neglinak is a moor with springs. So the length was 7.5 kilometers, and the width was 1.5 kilometers, and the depth of this valley was 25 meters. So this is the Kuznetsky most, the Manege Square, and then it passed the Kremlin to join the Moscow River. Here you can see Valery Vosnitsov's picture, the brother of another Vosnitsov who made the three knights or Три Богатыря painting and other things. So this is quite important. Here you can see the birth view of Moscow in the 12th century. Can you see the Kremlin? It is there, by the way. Here it is. Here is the Kremlin. Can you see it now? So here is the Moskva River, and this is the Neglinka, and this is Yauza. Our predecessors built the Kremlin for a reason. You can see that two rivers come together here to protect the Kremlin from the south, which was a troublesome place, and from the west. So this was important in terms of defense, and water was also important for the city needs, including firefighting. Some more background. Here you can see the Neglinka street, or Neglinka river. It was quite wide. And this is the reconstruction time, from the 12th to the 15th centuries. The river at that time was quite clean, and it had fish in it, and there were mills on the bank of the river. Later on, this river was turned into fishing ponds, and this is again Apollinarii Vasnitsov, the view of Moscow. So this is the 12th century, the 14th century, 14th century and 15th century. So you can see the Kremlin changing from wood into white stone and then into red stone. Almost the usual sight for us. Here is the Neglinka in the 17th century. Here you can see some bridges, you can see the city has spread out, you can see the ponds, you can see the bridges, and by the 17th century, Neglinka was getting polluted because people started kind of getting rid of waste using this river. And one more problem was flooding. This is still important, but not as much as it was important at that time. Okay, the view of 1790. As a matter of fact, it was quite dirty even at that time, so this picture is quite embellished. 1825, you can see there is no Neglinka anymore in this map, because they started channeling it into a pipe. In 1817, 1819, following the fire of 1812, when Napoleon was in Moscow, Moscow was reconstructed, and the first 3 kilometers of the pipe, the brick pipe, was built to conceal the Neglinka river. Mr. Chileev invented cement which could harden in water, and he was head of this process, of this construction process. So this is the picture of today. So in the past it wasn't that beautiful, it was dirty, and Galerovsky said that it generated a lot of nasty smell. And this is one of the reasons for flooding, because the tunnel didn't take the water from spring floods and rains. So here you can see Moscow with the highest water ever, and the Moscow River went 9 meters high. You can see it flooded everything. It happened in 1929, and here you can see the trends in the 1950s, and here you can see the Moscow today. Well, some things got better, sure, but not completely. And this is the Manege Square, with a Neglinka flowing underground. Talking about the site of memory, in the 1990s, they tried to commemorate this river, and I believe, well, many people believe that this is not a very good thing done. You can see my picture at the top right. Well, this is really horrible. Out of place. And this is not about the Neglinka River. So we all understand this. A few more words about the German approach and the European approach to this. How do they get rid of the water? How they solve their drainage and flooding issues? This is a project from Denmark. They will start the construction only in 2021, and they also have this flooding issue. This is a project they drafted. Quite elegant, isn't it? Some visualization. And the major issue here is drainage water arrangement. And so that's what Andy called rain garden. Another project from China. You know that the Chinese industry is developing quite quickly, and they have quite a lot of interesting projects, and this is one of them. And this is the Jianzhou Sanli River. And the major problem was floods, rain floods. And this is an environmental sponge project. And they planted plants in special grooves for drainage and infiltration of water. Let me show you the project so that you can see what I mean. So when water comes to all these grooves, the plants filter water. You can see it's quite good looking, isn't it? One more project for you. Do you recognize it? This is the Kazan Lake in Kazan. This was made by Turenscape. They are a leader in the parks like that. So we also have this in Russia, and it follows the same guidelines. The pictures take some time to load, I believe. One more project from Turenscape, a fresh one. This was a dumping ground. It looked like that. The bank of the river, the construction waste and debris. Here is the layout. So they made these fingers, as we say in Russian, tongues. So water is held in these areas, and plants filter the water. And in time of flooding, this is more capacity for collecting water. So this is quite beautiful, isn't it? That's it.